Hello, everybody, uh, from beautiful, warm San Diego, California. It is a beautiful fall day. Temperature inside my house, 81 degrees, and I am loving it. Fall is one of my favorite times to be in San Diego because the weather is just perfect. And that being said, I want to also point out that in the future, I have to really be careful with the P words because that that sound that you make when you say a word that begins with P, and I'm trying to be very careful saying that, it comes through in a bad, in a bad way. They call them pop filters. I need to get one for the front of my microphone. It's supposed to kind of have one built into it, but I need a better one. I need one that basically hooks onto it mounts around the arm of the microphone, I guess, and it goes over the front so that you don't when you use the p words, they don't come through so explosive to the ears. At any rate, this is the weekend review show. Let's get on with it. A huge game this week between Cal and Fresno State. I was looking at the score after I made my previous video, and I realized just what a big game this was. Fresno State came within 3/10 of a point of picking up a huge win over California. And by that matter, California, by 3/10 of a point, avoided a huge loss. I mean, it's going to be hard for either of these teams to get into the championship bracket with a victory in week 8. But to come this close or to win by this close has to be a sigh of relief and just a gasp of agony on the part of Fritz Bucklew, whose team dropped to 3-5. Now, of course, Fritz is having a good time in my regular fantasy football league, where he controls a team called the Yak Amy Yaks, and they're leading their division right now. So, hey, Fritz, at least you've got that going for you. But going forward, Fresno State has a lot of work to do now at 3-5. Cal, of course, with 4 wins now, needs to win 3 more from this group of games. They've got Alabama coming up, New Mexico, Michigan, Penn State, and Texas. No laydowns here. It's going to be hard for either of these teams to get into the championship bracket. Of course, really hard now for the Bulldogs, but this is what Cal's got to look forward to. They've got Bama. That's a winnable game. New Mexico, very tough game. Michigan is a tough opponent despite their record. Penn State also not going to be an easy one, and Texas. But at any rate, a loss to Fresno State would have been devastating to the Cal Golden Bears this week. All right, moving right along, I'll look at the San Diego State game real quickly here. San Diego State defeats Oregon as expected. The one thing I take from this game is that the Aztecs didn't get a huge game scoring wise compared to the other teams in the league. Some of the contenders. Great game by their wide receiver core, but the running backs really fell short. A.J. Dillon with just about 50 yards total offense, only 2 fantasy points. The day was saved. If they were playing a normal opponent, the day would have been saved by CeeDee Lamb with his huge game, 158 yards receiving. Garrett Wilson also with a good game. But honestly, the defense fell far short of expectations as they were below average. Only Devin Lloyd coming through with a good game, 4 points. Everybody else fell below average, and average is about 3 points. So San Diego State going to have to pick that up a little bit if they are going to succeed against the better teams in the league. Other big Week 8 matchups to look at. Let's see here. Let's look at the close ones. Michigan over Texas, 47-46. And this one decided by less than 1 point. If Texas gets this win, they have 4 wins, and they are looking good at making a run at the championship bracket. Of course, Michigan got the win, so this was a big one. And we talked about this being the game of the week last week, if I'm not mistaken. It was at least one of the games of the week, and it lived up to the billing. Michigan, who has a quarterback in Jordan Love, he hasn't messed up too badly this year. I was very skeptical that he could carry the load, but he has done very well. And now they have Jonathan Taylor back with Michigan. That's huge. This team is as good as anybody in the league. They scored 47 points this week and got it done. Also, Texas with 46 points, they would have beaten the Aztecs. But this is a huge loss for the Texans, who fall to 3-5. And you look at the standings, and the Texans have a lot of work to do, needing 4 wins against this group of teams. You've got Colorado on the docket this week, Georgia coming up, Ohio State, Tulane, and Cal. To get 3 wins against that group of teams is a pretty tall order. And let's move right along here. You've got another very tight game between New Mexico and Georgia. Surprisingly, Georgia made a game of it. They scored 48 points. New Mexico scored 52 roughly. And New Mexico, of course, got the big game from their rookie, Bryce Young, who had almost 8 points. He outplayed CJ Stroud in real life, and he's coming around a little bit. He had a really rough start to his career, but he's proven that he can play. So a big game by the rookie Bryce Young. Of course, Jamar Chase back in action, 100-yard game. The wide receivers for this team looking very good. The running game was lacking. They did get a big game from their tight end, Trey McBride, however. And this guy comes out of nowhere and is putting up elite type numbers. If he can keep this up, he really gives New Mexico an added weapon as if they needed one. They were already dominating. Georgia gives them a run for their money, but if I'm not mistaken, New Mexico outscores the entire. Nope, they were second place in scoring this week because Colorado came up with a huge game. But still, anything in excess of 50 points, very impressive in this league. And New Mexico is for real. Maryland took care of Penn State. That was a big game for both teams, really, because it would get them closer to the championship bracket. Maryland gets that win, so now they're just 1 win away pretty much. I really doubt that winning 7 games is not going to get you into the championship bracket. I don't think there's going to be 8 teams with 7 wins. And in the previous video, I had mentioned that 500 or better will get you in. That's only if you have a tie or you ever going to be 500 in this league. Generally, nobody gets ties. We haven't had one yet that I know of. So we might have had one in the first season. So normally there's no ties. So basically the drawing line between getting in and not getting in is 7 wins. And usually we've never had 8 teams with 7 wins to this point. At any rate, Maryland, with this huge win over Penn State, who is a title contender, gets them just 1 game away from getting to the championship bracket. And let's just take a quick look over here at Maryland and see what's coming up for them. You got Tulane, Michigan, Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon. There's your championship bracket right there, Oregon. Unless AJ Nardi decides to pull everybody off of redshirt status just to spoil it. But they would have to lose all these games first for this to be a spoiler game. And I think that Maryland is a good enough team to beat at least one of these teams, and that includes New Mexico. They could beat anybody in the league, in my opinion. On with the show here. Let's look at some other scores. We had Colorado whooping it up on Ohio State, 57-42 for that. That was a pretty tough one for Ohio State to take. They really needed a victory. They needed a lot of wins, and to lose this one this way just puts them in a major bind. I don't think I need to look at the schedule right now to tell you that 3-5 is going to be tough to come back from in this league if you need 4 wins and you only have 5 games to go. Other than that, let's see what we have. Yep, I pretty much went over the close games. Tulane came close to spoiling it for Alabama, but at the end of the day, the Crimson Tide gets their 6th win of the year. They're just 1 win away from making the championship bracket. I think I talked about, who is it? Oh, let's see here. Somebody that might have a little trouble getting in. I think it's Penn State. So Penn State with a big loss this week. Let's just take a close look at them really quick before we round out the video. Penn State has New Mexico coming this week, Ohio State, Georgia, Cal, and Alabama. These are all teams that are in the championship picture right now. So basically, Penn State is going to have to earn their way in. And when you look at their scores on the season, 37 points in week 8, 40 points in week 7, 37 in week 6. I mean, this team has been below 40 points various times over the last few weeks, handful of weeks, which means, they're struggling and they're going to need to pick it up a little bit if they're going to get into the championship bracket. Sure, they have 5 wins, as you can see here. Penn State, 5 wins, 3 losses. You'd think, oh, this team's on their way. But not necessarily the case, because this is a competitive league. As you can see, there is only 5 teams, one, two, three, four, 5 teams out of 14 teams that have less than 500 records right now. The only team that is really a laydown is the Oregon Ducks. And as you can see by the scores, everybody scoring in the 300s and above. It looks like only New Mexico has in excess of 400 points. So everybody is competitive. If you need 3 wins right now, 2 wins even, with 5 to go, it's going to be a challenge no matter how you slice it. With that, I'm just going to take a quick little break. And when I come back, I'm going to wrap up the show for the week. This is the Week 8 review of games in the Program Football League. Be back in just a second. Back here, and I'm going to close out the video in just a minute. I just wanted to say that what I'll be doing is team previews for the rest of, well, at least the next couple of days until we get to the weekend games. I mean, we have Thursday night football, of course, and then we have the game on Sunday. So I could spread them out from tomorrow on through till Saturday, most likely. And as I do it, I'll just post them here to the link section of the website. I got to remember to do that to always enlarge the screen for you guys, because I realize that when it comes through on the video, it's a lot smaller than it is to me. But as you can see right here under links, I have posted a video kind of previewing bowl season, talking about the bowl schedule. And then after that, I'm going to post previews for the games that are coming up. I've already done the one for Fresno State versus Michigan. And I'll just kind of put them out as I feel like doing them. I'm going to try to get more concise in the future and keep them as short as possible. I don't want to see them all go 10 minutes, but 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, right in that area is what I'm shooting for every preview, because I don't really want to, I don't want to short anybody when talking about their team. I realize that it might be kind of fun for you guys to listen to me talk about your teams. And one other thing I'd like to say is, like, you guys really should give me some input, on the in chat here. Throw some input down here so I can kind of go over your comments and make that part of the video. Certain guys like to give their 5 cents, 10 cents worth. Alabama being one of them. That's Mark Jones, and he's always good with an opinion. And I'd like to see more of that from you guys, so I can kind of make that part of the show. It might extend the show a little bit, but that's a good thing. I mean, as long as it's interesting, we're talking about the league. I find this league to be pretty fun, especially as we get closer to bowl season. And it gets down to these top 7 teams. And I'm enlarging here to get us down to just the top 7. I realize right now Cal is tied with Georgia and Michigan, who both have 4-4 records, as does Cal, which makes these games for these teams all the more important. By the way, just thinking about that right now, let's look at Cal. Where do they have ahead here? There we go. We got a big game coming up with Michigan for California. They played Georgia in opening week and got a big win against them. As it turns out, that's a huge win over Georgia. But they have this Michigan game looming in week 11. That'll be interesting. They also have some tough games between then. Alabama, a team that's kind of, they're the team that's in the top four right now, but I think a lot of people are wondering just how dangerous Alabama is. They had a couple of tough seasons coming into this year. It's been a building project for them. They've finally risen. They have a good, solid record. They just got to finish it off now. And it might not be totally easy, as Alabama, as you can see based on scoring, Alabama with 328 points, as that compares to the other top four teams. They're behind Maryland, San Diego State, and New Mexico. Teams behind them, Colorado has outscored them. Penn State is very comparable to them. Cal has outscored them. Georgia's outscored them. So Alabama's got a lot of proving to do, per se, or so to speak. And it will be fun to watch and see if they can prove themselves to be a legitimate title contender. But with that, I just wanted to go over a couple things, and I think I've done that. So I'm just going to wrap this one up, and I'll talk to you guys real soon with some more game previews. Good luck with your games, and I'll talk to you guys later.